Hello everyone, welcome back to Agribusiness interviews. We have a really special guest joining us today. Her name is Luya and she's from Farmcrowdy Aggregation. I'm Celeste Orby, the founder of Agribusiness, and I'll be hosting today's interview. So let's just wait for a few moments whilst Obi connects to the live, and we'll kick off the interview shortly. We're starting a little bit behind schedule, which is absolutely fine. You guys can watch this on IGTV later on today, or alternatively you can watch on YouTube now, because we have our very own YouTube channel, and I'm going to be transporting all of the live videos onto YouTube so that you can watch it whenever you like, cup of tea or whatever. I've just spoken to Obi just now on the phone on WhatsApp. She will be joining very, very shortly. So in the meantime, let's just sit back, relax, and enjoy this chat. I'm always so excited when I'm talking to Africans or talking about anything Africa based, because I don't know, I just love Africa so much, and I'm pretty sure that's the same for most of you that are going to be viewing this. It's really just the motherland. It's me too for me. I'm so excited. Okay, here she is, guys. So excited. Okay, let me add her. Right. So it's connecting and she will be with us shortly. Yay! Hi, Obi, how are you?
Hi, how are you, Celeste?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. So happy to see you.
Same here.
So how's your weekend
Finally.
been so far? I know. How's your weekend been so far?
Yeah, great, great. It's been good.
Good.
And yours?
Yeah, it's been good. It's showing some signs of spring, which I'm really excited about, because we've just come out of a long winter, snow and everything.
Really?
But now it's nice and warm. But
awesome.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You lead up Farmcrowdy, you're a business leader at Farmcrowdy Aggregation, but can you tell us a little bit more about who you are as a person, where were you brought up, and just give a general background of who you are?
Okay, about me. All right, so my name is Luya. As you must have already mentioned, I'm the third of 4 children, and I grew up in a house full of relatives, not just my siblings and I. And my parents were both educators. Yeah, and so my mom being a teacher, my dad was a lecturer in the university. My mom later became a principal, but at that time, the educators in Nigeria, teachers and all that, were not very well paid. They had a meager salary, and so my mom had to augment with a lot of small businesses by the side, and with farming as well. So we went to the farm. I know we had a cassava farm somewhere, and then so all of that, and then she did a lot of business. So I think that's where my interest in business emanated from.
Okay.
I knew that I had to, many times I had to do business to kind of augment and make up for. So I grew up knowing that business could be a solution, to financial struggles. And then so at 8, somewhere around 8 and 10, I decided to do a venture of my own. And then
8 and 10.
Yes, so I sold, I'm going to make you laugh, I sold bread.
Wow.
But the bakery where the bread was made was just across the fence from my house. So right now, when I think about it in terms of business positioning, it makes me laugh, because I was right beside the
bakery. Yeah, your
the bakery. The competitor, also a major competitor.
Wow.
But it was little things like that started me off on the business track. So that's business. And then off and on, you know, along the way, I've decided for different reasons to run different ventures, trading and all. Moving away from that to agriculture, I would say even if we had a farm, it wasn't my focus area initially, but I kind of, I could say I stumbled into agriculture. Post NYSC, that's our National Youth Service here in Nigeria, that you go through, yeah, after you graduated from the university. Post NYSC, I applied for a business development role with an ag tech. That's when agricultural technology was still fresh in Nigeria. So I got into the industry through that role, and I never got out till now. So
wow,
that's how I got into agriculture.
So you say that agriculture wasn't initially like the focus. So what was initially the focus?
Okay, so I was one of those people who, you know, pretty much had a baseline success in educationally. And so I had people who had different ideas and suggestions for me when it came to career. Even my parents, you know, my dad wanted me to be a doctor. My mom wanted me to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know, so I was somewhere in between all of that. But I knew that I was very interested in problem solving. It was something that made me tick, you know. So I knew whenever I needed to solve problems, it's a flair for me. And so I didn't know how to define that career. I still don't know how to define it. I think it's strategy, but right now I'm doing it in the agricultural space.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I've already learned so much about you. So right now, though, you're at Farmcrowdy Aggregation and you're one of the business leaders there. Yeah. So can you please just tell us a little bit, well, actually in detail, about what exactly Farmcrowdy Aggregation does so that we can know a little bit more?
Okay. So Farmcrowdy Aggregation is one of the business units in Farmcrowdy. We have 6 business units. Insurance, marketing, tech, structured finance, Farmcrowdy Foods, and then Farmcrowdy Aggregation. So Farmcrowdy Aggregation is the unit that solves the problems for farmers, linking them to markets. Aggregation is about addressing farmer issues in terms of market linkages. We do this in 2 major ways. First is through the aggregation aggregation activities, commodity aggregation activities, and we facilitate this with a technological platform where farmers can meet buyers for their produce, and then there's a match between the farmers' offer to sell and the buyer's orders to buy. And then because a lot of the farmers in Nigeria and Africa as well are smallholder farmers, yeah, it makes possible that aggregation activity facilitates aggregation such that you're able to collect from different sources easily, you know, for the large scale buyers to get the quantities that they seek. So that's our first approach in terms of aggregation. And the second approach that we've taken is sort of like a backward integration to just commodity aggregation. So we're now working with these farmers and farmer groups to increase their outputs. So we, as I mentioned earlier, there's a business unit called Structured Finance, where finance is sourced for farmers and food value chain participants. So using that funding, which usually comes from, high net worth individuals, development organizations, and government and non-governmental initiatives. We use that funding and plug into a cooperative farming system for farmers on a contiguous land in a way that they are able to farm together. It creates uniformity in the expected output. You're better able to monitor the system, control it in terms of best practices and the quality of inputs that goes into the farm. At the end of the day, the farmers are able to make their profits because their outputs are better, and then you're able to offtake in bulk to signed up off-takers, so they are assured of markets. So those are the two major ways in which we're addressing access to markets.
That's awesome. So I also I'm aware that Farmcrowdy has, as its vision, basically you guys want to see Africa becoming food secure. So why exactly is food security so important to you guys?
Okay, so I think that food security is important to everyone. We all have to eat. I mean, you won't have this beautiful smile on your face if you haven't eaten. Okay, so I think that food security is something that has become paramount to pursue in Africa, and Farmcrowdy has taken that up as a key driver of its vision, because we need to see a change in that sector. I mean, Africa is blessed with so much resources, in terms of agriculture and food provision. I mean, we have good lands, we have fertile lands, we have good rainfall here. We have several advantages that we could leverage to ensure that we're self-sufficient in terms of food, but we still depend a lot on importation. I mean, there's even another twist to it where we're importing the things that we farmed initially, but I think it's key, and it's pivotal, because that drive to make sure that food is available and affordable, to everyone, good healthy food to everyone, every time and everywhere, is an important drive to see Africa grow, in itself as a whole.
Okay. So back to the aggregation centers, I understand that Farmcrowdy aggregation uses a lot of youth to sort of manage those centers. Why have you guys specifically targeted youth in that regard?
Okay, so we know youths are they're sort of like the buzz of the moment, and one of the things that makes youth the buzz of the moment is technology. Technology, you'd agree with me. So we see that for the older generation, there's still that gap when it comes to adopting and using technology.
Okay.
But for youths, there's the flair. For youths, there's the drive, there's the creativity, there's the genius, still very active, and ready to get their hands dirty if they have to. And that is what food business, that's what drives food business, whether in terms of growing the food, distributing it, or putting it in the right conditions. So yes, that's why we'll take the youths. And since we're an ag-tech company, we're approaching agricultural solutions from a technological perspective. Okay. I mean, it makes sense to adopt the youths and drag them, find ways to attract them to the system. If you're using, you're using technology, I mean, for example, and you're saying, oh, we're trying to attract more youths into this sector, if it's boring and the good old systems, historical systems, it'll be more difficult. But when it becomes interesting, when there are apps, to use, to deploy in the field, and they see that their work is sort of turning blue collar, it's more attraction. So yes, that's why we've picked youths to work.
And also, probably this is like an indirect benefit, the fact that the youth unemployment rate on the continent is just so high as well. So this is just another way of helping in terms of development.
Exactly. Yeah.
So with Farmcrowdy aggregation, you've mentioned that you guys provide markets for these farmers. There's so many other things that you do. If people want to head over to your website, you will be able to see a full list of what Farmcrowdy aggregation and the ways in which they can help. So some might describe the business as a lifeline to these farmers. So is there, or are there any good news stories linked to Farmcrowdy aggregation that you might want to share with us?
Okay. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've had several stories over the years, and even when you go to the website, you'll see a couple of them. But I'll just highlight two that speak to the approaches that we currently use in Farmcrowdy aggregation. One is the aggregation activity itself, which takes place in the farm gates. During our 4th anniversary in November, we shared a video of an aggregation market for plantain. And we had the woman there, appreciate Farmcrowdy for, coming down that way to the interior villages, like the farm gate markets, to aggregate and offtake their produce, to the urban centers for sale. And they're able to sell and support their families, raise their children, because they're able to do that. If Farmcrowdy wasn't there to do that, there are two other possible outcomes. One of them is, we know plantain, it ripens fast. There's a tendency that it will ripen, begin to go bad, and they would either have to sell off at a loss, just to get something out of it, or it will be a total waste. So those are some of the impacts of the Farmcrowdy aggregation business units. Those are some of the things that we see and that encourage us to do more in spite of the hitches that we experience on a daily basis. The second one I'll speak to is more on the large scale production in terms of contiguous farming, of cooperative farming on contiguous lands. So especially this year, as we evolved into our current structure and system, we're working with several state governments to see that we organize their farmers into clusters to work on these contiguous lands, where there's more supervision on the use, and then we can feed in quality inputs, use best practices and get good outputs that would attract premium off-takers, guaranteed off-take, and then, visiting these villages to kickstart these projects, have seen, when you see the excitement on the faces of these people as to how much impact this project will have on them, not just in terms of the farming activity itself, but opening up the community to economic growth and investments, direct and indirect income for project participants, and even others. There's always a ripple effect in communities like that. yeah, there are some who don't have access roads, and because because of the project, we have to create access roads. We have to put water facilities in place, and it just goes ahead to change the entire face of the community in terms of accessibility, and all that they're able to really do and explore. So those are some of the things you see the joy, beyond, beyond the monetary benefits, and those have really been some satisfying moments for us.
Nice. So, in terms of, we all know that Africa has a lot of natural resources, but what is your
Yeah.
view on us as Africans adding value to our resources? So, what do you think? Should we be doing more of it?
Yes, so that's speaking to value addition to our value chains. I think it's paramount. I think it's pivotal for us to begin to gain momentum, and come up on a level playing field globally. We're all familiar with all the stories of cocoa to chocolate,
Yes. Yeah.
yes, and some of our spices, coffee, some of our spices are exported raw and come back as, finished products that actually solve everyday problems, and then we have to buy them back. But the sad twist to it is that the farmers who farmed those commodities initially are unable to even afford those things that were made from their commodities.
Exactly.
So I think that it's a very important aspect right now that we need to leverage. In the last few years, we've had a lot of micro, small scale, medium, and even large scale industries begin to do more value addition in the sector. We have had that, so we're not there, but it's happening. I just think that niche needs more support in terms of standardization, obtaining the necessary certifications and licenses to access and explore global markets. We also need financing, funding, and overall support for that niche, because it's the only thing that's going to bring African agriculture to the global stage. Yeah.
Okay. So Farmcrowdy has moved away from the sponsor integration process, which I think was a great idea, by the way. Are you guys, I know you touched on this point earlier on, but are there any sort of similar organizations that are doing what that process was? Or have you guys completely moved away from that?
In terms of crowdfunding, there are several organizations that crowdfund. I mean, I know Farmcrowdy pioneered that in the agricultural sector.
Yeah.
Several other organizations have gone into that, but we evolved from there with the attendant lessons, and the agricultural financing that we now do is one that is more suited or tailored to the dynamics of the sector. The thing is, when you crowdfund, people are steadily looking out for short-term returns a lot of times, and then agriculture is not short-term. The crops have to grow, you have to mitigate all the risks, and then you have to come out with outputs that is good enough for the kind of offtake that you seek. So that's why we've shifted our funding model to what we now call structured finance. That I mentioned before, that now sees, projects and initiatives, or funding organizations or individuals, high net worth individuals, saying, I want to invest in this sector. this is how much I have. Some of them come with specifics as to these are the category of farmers or value chain participants that I want to impact. You know, and what Farmcrowdy does is to grant access to those set of people, manage the project, manage the entire process to make sure that the outcomes, the expected outcomes are achieved. So that's basically what we're doing as an alternative to crowdfunding.
Okay, that's still awesome. So Farmcrowdy's leadership team's comprised of 45% women, which I think is great. But in your opinion, why is it so important to have women in leadership roles?
Women in leadership roles. I smiled at that question. Okay, so I think first and foremost, I think it's important to have competent people in leadership roles, male or female. The advantage of gender balance, you know, on a team, on any team, is the fact that you're able to get a balanced perspective on how to approach issues. The different issues that you're going to address affect both men and women. And so it would be sensible and good to have both people, both gender, you know, analyze those situations and come up with solutions. That's when you will have a balanced sort of solution to what is going on. Also, you know, all the psychological contributions of how women are able to put a lot of stuff together, aside empathy, able to work, you know, a system with multitasking, so to say, you know, work on a lot of things at the same time, and get the results out. There's all of that, and that serves as an advantage. The considerations that she's going to have in terms of, putting everybody, you know, in the picture when coming up with solutions. Those are some of the advantages, but I always begin and conclude with the fact that, you know, competence and, you know, capabilities is really what matters. In our world today, we know that a lot of women are breaking the historical glass ceilings, you know, because they have the capacity, they're competent enough to do it, you know, and they're doing it, you know, and no one is stopping them from doing, even when they encounter challenges, they go beyond. So my advocacy many times is on empowering the woman, improving her competence level, her capacity to take on some of these leadership roles, so that, you know, she can actually do it. I think it's more of a competence drive than a numbers drive when it comes to gender balance.
So speaking of breaking the ceilings, you are personally credited to have set up the first agro-commodity trade index in Nigeria. And also, so can you tell us a bit about what that is, and how did this idea come about? So you were credited for that by the former trade or finance minister, rather, and now the director general of the WTO. So that was definitely a great achievement. I saw you rolling your eyes there, but it's amazing. So tell us a bit about that.
Okay, so great. So about that time and up until now, I didn't think too much of what was done, you know. But yes, I mean, the idea was also, it also came about from the problem solving approach to work and to business. I was with the the first ad tech company that I worked with, and on the job, we were collecting commodity price data on a daily basis.
Okay.
I mean, so there was a bank of this data, and we knew the potentials, that it was huge, in terms of, if any data analyst handled that data, you'd be able to see historical trends, you'd be able to do forecasts and budgets, and then that was, eventually what it was used for in drafting the budget in 2014. So we could see those potentials, but the business environment wasn't ready. Not too many people were willing to pay for that data, and it really cost a lot to put together. So we needed to find a way to communicate that value, to communicate it at a glance, and then we didn't want to expend more resources doing that. So I looked at it, and then we're able to come up with that tool, the commodity index, that showed week-on-week price changes of food commodities across the country. We picked selected markets to represent all the geopolitical zones, and then we were serving the prices and the percentage changes week on week. This was it was a table, it was like something that you would see on TV when you're doing some of the forex gains and losses of organizations.
Okay.
It looked sort of that kind of financial report.
Complexy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Simple, but
okay.
complex, and with all the implications at a glance. And so when we had that ready, I was also able to talk to a couple of media houses, television, radio, and newspaper, who were more than happy to take it on as content.
Wow.
So we didn't incur any cost as an organization putting it out there. So yes, that's how the index came about. It ran on for years. I'm not very sure if it's still on, but yes, that's what the index was. And in reviewing the budget or presenting the budget that year, the current World Trade Organization Director General referred to that index because it was reliable data that was consistently in public eye, so everyone could relate. With the African system of not being able to put out accurate information, there, even at that time and even now, information is something very scarce, or accurate data is something very scarce, in this part. Yeah, so it was something that now came in useful, and was, well, obvious to all. So yeah, that's what the index was. That was what drove it. Yes, it sat on my table. A lot of the ideas came from me. I put it out there, but not without the support of my team.
Yeah.
At that time, the head of the organization, all those in the other departments, the data collection department, my own teammates, there was a lot of collaboration around it to bring it to what it was at that time. So that's it.
Okay, so you've come a long way from the baking of your bread and selling your bread to the index. So what resources have you used to that have inspired you to get this far, whether it be books or mentors or lessons that you've learned? Like, share with us how you've become who you are. I know that's a really hard question to answer, but you can just try.
Okay, so it's not hard per se. It's that I learned from life. I learned from everyday life. There are several things that people will consider simple, that I observe and pick lessons from on a daily basis, you know, from growing up, my parents, my siblings, how my mom was able to manage that large crowd in my home. If she's listening or she hears about it, she's going to laugh. I don't know how to manage that, you know. From that to my siblings, now even my kids, they say some things and I'm like, okay, you know. So it's a continuous learning process for me, from people, from the things that I read. In terms of books, I'm a skimmer. I skim through books because I have to read a lot of material on a daily basis.
Okay.
Because of the kind of work that I do, I have to get, there's a consistent flow of information at me.
Yeah.
So I read a lot of books. I read a lot of material, you know,
have any
online.
favorite books that you've read?
Do I have favorites? Do I have favorites? Do I have favorites? Let me see. Yeah. I like Who Took My Who Took My Cheese.
What? Okay. Okay.
Yeah. I like. I have favorites. Well, not particularly. I like. Okay, so I'm a schemer. I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to zero in on any. I'm a schemer when it comes to books and material.
Okay.
I
That's my
laughing.
sister, by the way. Who ate my
laughing.
cheese. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. Okay, so I like in terms of people now, there are a lot of people, like I mentioned, from family to friends to I like to call my friends my power circle. They kind of, there's that horizontal kind of mentorship that happens between us. I have a couple of people I look up to also. There's Ndidi Muneli.
Yes, she's a boss.
Yeah, so there's Ibukun Awashika also. I like that they're able to creatively impact the world sustainably. You know, they are solving problems in a sustainable manner, and then they're able to have a work-life balance.
Yeah.
You know, also in terms of family, yeah, and then in terms of should I say religion?
Yeah.
You know, so they kind of have like a balanced life while thriving, you know, on all sides. I think that every day, consistently, life throws resources at us. Life throws resources at us that we learn from.
Yeah.
And these things, it's the way that we process these things, is the way that we decide to see them and react to them.
Definitely.
That now determines how those resources become advantages or disadvantages to us. So yeah, that's how I learn. I learn through life.
Okay.
Generally.
So, final question is, do you have a message to Africans? And if so, what would your message to Africans be?
My message to Africans, okay. I would say to Africans that we have a lot of work to do. It at all times, it almost seems like we're trying to catch up. Yes. And so I believe that every one of us has a role to play.
Yeah.
In making our world a better place, in leaving, the world better than we met it.
Yeah.
There's something that you can do. I know there's a lot of challenges, but we can do our bit. Let's not give in or give up or give in to the challenges that always seem to stare us in the face and keep coming up at us. There's something we can all contribute. If the I end by saying, it's a Chinese proverb, that if the winds will not serve, we'll take to the oars.
Mm.
If life is not moving you in the direction that you would expect, then you would have to find a way to steer the boat
Yeah.
yourself. There's no impossibility. Don't allow your mind to be limited.
Yeah.
There's something that you can do. So please just go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. So thank you so much for that. That was definitely very inspiring and insightful. So I was trying to read the comment that we just saw. But yes, that's very inspiring and insightful. And I can't wait to see what else you're going to do in your journey. And for everyone that's watching, thank you so much. Message me, like this video, share it. And thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Obi. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Bye.
Celeste.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.